I'd like to call the meeting to order for Monday, December 19th, 2016. Please rise for the pledge.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Alderman Mike Morgan will lead us in prayer.
Thank you. Let's pray. Our most gracious and heavenly Father, we thank you for this day. Lord, we just thank you for your love and for your blessings. Lord, we just thank you knowing no matter who we are or what we've done, that you're able to love us and forgive us of our sins. Lord, be with the ones that's sick. Be with the ones that's in bereavement, Lord. Especially be with the Garner family and the Kirk family at this time. Lord, we ask that you be with each and every one of us here that's listening, that's watching in the audience, and you just be with us from this day forward. For it's in your name we pray. Amen.
Amen. Thank you. Next item on the agenda, roll call. Please show all present tonight with Carolyn Norman. Next item on the agenda, approval of minutes. Entertain a motion to approve the minutes from the last meeting. So moved. Motion from Kevin Chaney. Is there a second?
Second.
Second from Terry Glover. Any discussion? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, motion carries. Next item on the agenda, unfinished business. Just one piece of business on unfinished business. At the last meeting, Alderman Chaney inquired about changing the time of the board meeting, and it's our municipal code that was established in 1978. I passed a copy out to each of you, but under our general administration, Title I, our municipal code sets the time of the Board of Mayor and Alderman meeting, and it says the Board of Mayor and Alderman shall hold regular monthly meetings at 7 p.m. on the first and third Mondays of each month at the municipal courtroom established by ordinance in 1978. We can change that if the board wishes and desires to do so. It'll be a change by ordinance. If you want me to pursue that, I will.
You need a motion?
I don't really need a motion because we'd have to call for a public hearing and have the public hearing to do it, but it is something we can do. One thing I would want to do is check with the city court clerk about Monday in court and what time they get through on a regular basis. But if this board wants me to look into that and maybe set the meeting time at 5:30 or 6 p.m., we can certainly do that. But again, we have to change it by ordinance.
You talking about just the 3 months when the time changes, or is that?
I think we're talking about the whole, just changing it forever, is what I understand.
Okay. I don't have a problem with
Okay, so let me look into that.
Yeah.
Okay, I'll check the city court clerk about our appropriate starting time. I would think probably 6 o'clock would be the earliest we could start a board meeting, but I'll check with her and we'll proceed forward then. Next item on the agenda, new business. Under new business, the first item is a public hearing to be held tonight. A request from Craig Barron to appeal a rezoning request that was denied by the Dyersburg Regional Planning Commission on November 10th, 2016. Is Craig Barron here? Don't see Craig Barron. That was a call for a public hearing at the last meeting. Information was in your packet. It's in your packet again this meeting as well. Just a brief history, had a request from Craig Barron on September 26th to rezone some property on Cabin Moore Road from M1 to M2. There are the minutes of the Planning Commission meeting from that meeting that was held on October 13th for B&B Partners rezoning request. Give you some information about that. M1, M2 districts are similar in the uses allowed, except for the M2 allows for a slightly heavier impact industrial use, preparation of food products, bottling plants, transportation terminals. Recommendation from the staff and from the planner was to deny the rezoning request. Chairman Burks called for any questions or further discussion. Chairman Burks entertained a motion to approve or deny the request. The request failed due to a lack of any motion. And then we had to take some type of official action for Craig to come before this board, and we met again on November 10th. That application for property reclassification was filled out by Craig to rezone it from M1 to M2. The minutes of that meeting are attached also in your packet. Kind of the same thing. B&B Partners rezoning request, 11 acres Calvin Moore Road, Fort Hudson Road. Talks about a request to rezone similar property or property adjacent to it. Was denied in 2013. That was 2 requests. Recommendation from from our planner and from the staff recommended denial of that request as well at the last meeting. And then there's a motion made and it was denied by the planning commission. So now we have the request from Craig to come before this board to discuss that. I don't know what we do if Craig's not here. This is a public hearing. If anybody would like to speak to it, we can do that.
Mayor, could I ask a question?
Yes, sir.
From M1 to M1 to M2, is that right?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Tell us about, I know what we had in this package you found out, handed out, the differences in the 2 different zones, please, briefly.
I'm gonna let Thomas Mullins do that if you don't mind.
Basically, there's only a couple of changes in the M1 to M2. I will for just a little bit of history. Everything on the north and the south side of Old 51 and what we call our industrial park is zoned M1. So from Mr. Burke's to Beckart to NSK to Devil Eye is all M1. So we have a variety of different manufacturing plants in the M1 zone. Just for reference, uses permitted in the M1 zone: manufacturing, processing, and/or fabrication, warehousing, distribution, research labs, governmental uses, corporate office, accessory uses to incidental to the aforementioned permitted uses, and telecommunication towers. M2, uses permitted: preparation of food products, bottling plants, warehousing, assembly and finishing of materials or products, transfer and transportation terminals, accessory buildings, and telecommunication towers. Pretty much everything that we have in our known industrial park is covered under the M1. The only difference that I can speak of, other than some language regarding other types of occupancy, retail, mercantile, et cetera, would be billboards. That's the only thing.
Food processing also, isn't that right, Thomas?
Well, we have processing allowed. Yes, sir. As I said, processing.
Isn't that right? M2 is food processing allowed in M2, but not in M1.
Well, in M1, you have
Is
what's
that
called
in the
processing.
uses permitted in our ordinance? Is it food processing? Food processing in M1.
M1 allows manufacturing, processing, and/or fabrication. So yes,
Is it spelled out in our M2?
it's spelled out in the M2. Yes.
That's it. Thank you. That's what I asked.
So virtually, that's the differences. Like I said, you've got an array of different companies out in the M1 zone. That's the difference between the M1 and the M2.
How many acres we're talking about?
As far as the rezoning,
Yeah, this one spot we're talking about.
is it approximately 11 acres?
Says 11.
11?
Approximately
11
acres.
So
It
most
does
of
face
the other
it
industry,
Face the interstate, it faces the interstate or joins the interstate, its own interstate?
It adjoins the interstate, and
Yeah.
also Calvin Moore Road, I believe.
Okay, Calvin Moore.
Yes.
And then around the other part of the industrial park is, that's already existing with the mustard company and the other 2 spec buildings we built is on around that road, isn't that correct?
They both adjoin the interstate as well, though.
Yeah.
Yes, sir.
Okay.
They're on Fort Hudson and the interstate. They're
Yeah.
back to the interstate.
Mhm.
That answer your question, Mr. Kirk, about
Yes.
M1, M2?
Yes, thank you.
Yes, sir.
Appreciate it.
Any other questions of Thomas? Anybody else wish to speak to public hearing?
Mr. Mayor, I come to you tonight with the utmost respect for the Board of Mayor and Alderman represented for several years, and I come not to dissuade anyone from their intentions with regard to this action. This board is fully capable under law to do whatever you do, to fully advertise, call and convene public session, and a majority vote. So I'm not here so much as to address the substance of your action, but to just call to your attention a couple of points that have been considered by the board in other instances where properties close to the industrial park have been asked to be rezoned. 3 years ago, 2 separate owners of properties adjacent to the industrial park appealed to the Planning Commission to rezone their property so that they could use them not for industrial purposes, but for residential purposes. And I forget the designation, but you know, we have several R zones, R1, 2, 3, maybe even more, 4, excuse me. So I forget what the particular residential zone was, but nonetheless, they wanted to get their properties rezoned. I think one was for a personal residence and one was for a residential development. And at that time, the board denied those requests based on the fact that the city and the county and the state of Tennessee have have made a multi-million-dollar investment in what we call the North Industrial Park, which is the industrial park that's located on the northwest of the interstate. And since that time, of course, when that request was made, NSK was already there, but since that time, another industry is located there. And so what an industry looks for in its industrial location, which they expand and employ people at and all of this, is dependability on the part of the city and being sure that the character of the neighborhood doesn't change. They don't want anything that is going to prejudice their investment. In the case of NSK, there's an investment there that's now in excess of $70 million and an employment of close to 500 people.
Have we guaranteed NSK in a reasonable distance that they dictate what comes in or out, or does it still belong to the owners in any direction? I mean, how do you cater to one owner and discriminate against another?
I'm not really here to debate an issue, Mr. Cheney. The reason I'm here right now and I'm making these statements is merely to point out considerations that I hope the board will view when you vote. And as I say, if you vote to do whatever you do, that's fine, it's legal, it's appropriate, it's just because the city board has done that. I'm just bringing to your mind considerations, and the precedent is that 3 years ago, in consideration of the capital investment in the industrial park, the city denied the request of 2 separate property owners to change the designation of their property from industrial to residential. So, that's the past precedent, and the basis of it is just that the city, when it develops an industrial park and recruits industry to the park, part of the bargain, if you will, Mr. Cheney, and I do think implicit in recruitment of an industry and allowing it to propagate, is an understanding that nothing will be undertaken intentionally by the board that would prejudice the investment of that industry. Talked to Mr. Kirk about this earlier today. You're not going to prejudice a private owner's multi-million-dollar investment, and furthermore, you won't prejudice the public investment by the city, by the county, by the state in an industrial park, the purpose of which is to create jobs. So,
One question, Mr. Lamb. How much more property does the city of Dyersburg have adjacent to the interstate there for industrial development?
how many acres?
How much property do we own adjacent to the interstate for industrial development now that's vacant?
Well, I would say that would just be the property located north of the Devil Eye site, which I think would be, I would say, and I don't know for sure, but I would say 50 to 75 acres.
Thank you.
So the one consideration I just ask you to keep in mind is that you do nothing to prejudice the investment by the county governments and the state in that industrial park, and the possibility of it expanding those industries. The other thing I'd like to just call to your attention and ask that you be aware of as you vote is the precedential value the board enters into and upon when it undertakes to take an action that's been denied by the Planning Commission. There is a process, and in the past, the way this process has worked, and it's not peculiar to the city of Dyersburg, it's a statewide process. In matters of zoning and land use planning and subdivision of real estate, the state law requires matters to be brought to the Planning Commission, and in this instance, that's the city of Dyersburg Planning Commission, the members of which are appointed by your board. The Planning Commission is assisted by a professional in urban planning and land use planning, and they vet projects that are brought to them, in this case, the rezoning project, and then they take an action based upon the process in place to examine and evaluate issues of rezoning. If the Planning Commission denies a rezoning request, the proponent is able to appeal to the city board. And the city board is perfectly and legally and well within its rights to take whatever action it wants without regard to the action taken by the Planning Commission. So as far as legality, this board tonight can do whatever it wants. But if you undertake to rezone a piece of property that the Planning Commission has denied, in the absence of your stipulating any special considerations that would justify that rezoning, in other words, if there was a particular merit to this request, if it was a matter of compelling public concern, if it dealt with a peculiar set of facts that we could put in the minutes and the board could rely upon for precedential value in determining when is it appropriate for the city board to act in a manner that's opposite to the way the Planning Commission acted. Then you create the possibility for the next case that comes around, you have a precedential you have a precedent, if you will, a factual precedent that you can rely upon to distinguish the next rezoning request. So I might come to you tomorrow and say, well, look, I want you to rezone my property. The Planning Commission has turned me down, but I want you guys to rezone it. And you might say, well, tell us about it. What is the purpose for the rezoning? Why is this so important? And if I were unable to tell you as a board what facts were involved and a reason why you should rezone my property and the reason why the Planning Commission didn't rezone it before I bring it to you, then you have some basis upon which you can say, no, John, we're not going to rezone your property. Because you know what? The facts you brought to us were different from the facts that we considered when the application was brought to us in December in this particular matter. But if you don't have any factual basis to rezone a piece of property that the Planning Commission refuses to rezone, then when the next guy or gal comes to you and says, I want you to rezone my property now, a precedent has been set. And no new facts are required, no compelling public argument is required, nothing is required other than the discretion of this board. And if you exercise your discretion in a manner that is inconsistent, that is to say, if one application for you to act contrary to the Planning Commission has no special considerations giving merit to it, but you do it anyway, then the next one that comes to you, if it has no special considerations, and you deny it, I'm not sure it's defendable. So you are potentially walking off into a precedent here where without special considerations and without a systematic guide by which to measure appeals to you from the Planning Commission, you may just have to rule in a certain way going forward, irrespective of how you feel about it and irrespective of the facts associated with it. So, again, with the greatest respect for this board, I've lived here my whole life, and I've always felt the Board of Mayor and Alderman was consisted at least of the wisest, most honorable people in the city, and I'd say that to you tonight. You're going to do the right thing, I know you will, and I'm not here to change anyone's mind on anything, but these were 2 points that I thought warranted mention tonight, that this is something you didn't do 3 years ago, so kind of be ready for that. And the other thing is that from a precedential value, be ready for the consequences of this going forward for additional appeals from the Planning Commission.
Mayor, Mr. Lanham, I have a question, please, before you depart. You used the term prejudice their investment. That's the city and the county's investment of multi-million dollars in industrial sites for potential plants or businesses that would locate out there.
Yes, sir.
Now, on the south side of the road, I'm going to use that same phrase if I could, I think our investment has been prejudiced because of a junkyard and some other entities along that road that were done after we developed a number of sites on the south side. So that prejudicing the investment, I'm having difficulty understanding that.
Let me put it, maybe give you a situation where maybe you can understand. As you all probably know, I'm involved in industrial recruitment. I represent the County Industrial Board and the Chamber of Commerce, and so on a daily basis, I am talking to people who are either interested in exploring an industrial expansion in the city of Dyersburg, or who are already here and have a concern. And so I have had discussions with industrialists who are here who perceive a certain development as prejudicial to their investment. I have had a firm years ago there was a driving range that was right across the street, sort of catty corner from the Grecian Steakhouse restaurant. And an industrialist came to me, a plant manager came to me and said, that is not going to work, it's not going to go. I can't bring my corporate superiors into Dyersburg to see this, where there's a driving range with potentially golf balls are going to be bouncing down the industrial road. That's been several years ago. It's not a perfect example, but that's an example of where a plant manager of an industry in Dyersburg is looking around to be sure that his investment is appropriate. To tell you another more relevant one. The president of NSK North America, in advance of the completion of the NSK plant, expressed concern over a trailer park that was located at the intersection of Fort Hudson Road and the state highway. And he expressed concern that for the grand opening of NSK, that customers, executives of General Motors, Toyota, Nissan were going to be coming to Dyersburg, and that apparently someone in the recruitment of this industry had said, we're going to have a nice entrance for you, and he had determined that entrance is prejudicial to his plant, that someone from Toyota might not want NSK to build a steering assembly at that plant, given that development next door to it. And there the city and the county, you recall that some years ago, city and county got together and we eliminated that so that people entering the industrial park would be confident that their investment would be appropriate there. That the city of Dyersburg was not gonna let there be a development which would embarrass customers of the plant or make executives of the plant or the owners of the plant feel that that was prejudicial to their investment value. And so I don't know the purpose for this rezoning, and it may not be important, but if that purpose, let's just be crazy, and I'm sure it's not this way, but if it was wholly inconsistent with what you would expect to be in an industrial park, then we might get some concerns from some of the tenants of the industrial park that, what is the city doing? You got this, you spent the money for the park, went through condemnation for that, and we have a new water tank there that's pretty well dedicated to working with the other tanks to provide fire flows to the industry. So if there was a wholly inconsistent use with this piece of property made possible by virtue of the rezoning, it could be a concern. And with your permission, if something like that should happen, and I'll be questioned on it, Mr. Morgan, I'm gonna call you and the rest of the city board, we'll come together and convene, and we can respond to whatever complaint might arise. But that is just, I think it's a reasonable concern. When you have an investment, you just don't want to be accused of not considering all the relevant facts before you act on it. And so the prejudice of the capital investment is there for a project, the particulars of which are not all known.
Thank you.
Thank you, gentlemen.
Any other questions?
You know, my problem is, Mayor, with this is a request for an appeal of rezoning. It would be nice to hear the other side of this story, but this individual that requested it is not here tonight. And I don't see that much difference, because I have heard all kind of stories about this, but no actual facts on it. But to me, it doesn't look like there's that much difference between M1 and M2. And then if we have a industry or something like that that is actually looking at this piece of property that will tell us what they need, but here we've had a request for this rezoning and nobody shows up.
Why don't we table this until Mr. Barron can attend the meeting?
That'd make a lot more sense to me.
I make a motion we table this request until Mr. Barron can attend the meeting.
Okay, have a motion from Kevin Chaney to table this request till Mr. Craig Barron can attend the meeting and answer some questions we may have. Is there a second?
I'll second that.
Second from Dennis Moody. Any other discussion?
Yes, does that mean we gotta go start all over and go through this public hearing process, more
Advertising?
city attorney come before the board? I mean, it's on and on. It's been about, how many times has he made this request? 2 or 3 or 4?
Well, this will be number 3. And
Okay, that's what I'm asking.
Sure.
What kind of process will we have to go through? Start all over again?
Well, I don't know what's happened to the guy. He's obviously been interested. He's been to 2 or 3 meetings, and for whatever reason, he couldn't make it here tonight. I'd hate to.
In response to your question, Mr. Kirk, you asked at the last meeting about us advertising for notices of public hearings. I think you did come to City Hall and look at that notebook. So that is a process we follow. We will have to follow that again. It won't have to come before the Planning Commission that I'm aware of, because it's been denied, and I'm assuming he is within his legal rights to request this again based on the tabling of this at this time. In the previous meeting, I think we kind of tabled the call for the public hearing. But yes, we will have to advertise again, notice a public hearing, and go through the legal process to do that.
And what's the length of that notice? Do you recall off that?
15 to 30 days, I'm not for sure.
Okay.
Thomas actually handles all our notices of public hearings that relate to rezoning and things like that. Obviously, that comes with a cost to us. We have not been charging to do that, but I think I'll look at doing that. It'll be the 3rd time that Mr. Craig Barron has been before us, and we pay those advertising costs. And I think there is some allowances in our charter and our schedule of fees that require them to pay for it. Is that correct, Thomas? Okay, so, yeah, this is
Thank you.
3rd time we'll tee it up. All right, Thank you. Next item, on the agenda. Did we vote?
No.
Okay,
Yeah.
got a motion, a second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, motion carries. Next item on the agenda, attorney invoice that was attached also in your agenda. The amount of the attorney invoice, $16,162.50. Would entertain a motion to approve that.
So moved.
Motion from Bob Kirk, is there a second?
Second.
Second from Robert Taylor Jr. Any discussion? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, motion carries. Bids, Greg Williams.
First item I have is for the police department, and it is to purchase 37 tasers, holsters, batteries, and cartridges to replace units that are currently using that's 5 years old or older and are out of warranty and out of manufacturer support. There was $15,000 budgeted this year. I think it was less than that last year, but not much less, as an ongoing replacement. Since that time, Taser International has advertised a program they call Taser 60, I believe, and that allows us to make a purchase that is more our size. Before, this was only a program that was offered to larger cities, but now they've offered it to departments of our size, and that allows a discount on each taser we buy. We get a discount for every taser that we have that matches that amount. It also extends the warranty to 5 years and allows us to pay for it over a 5-year period rather than at the front. So, and this is a sole source of supply. They're the manufacturer, and there's other distributors we could buy from, but it won't be any cheaper, and we won't have a opportunity to take advantage of this program. So I would recommend awarding the bid to Taser International for $45,681.68, and the schedule of payment is listed there on your sheet.
Is this a replacing, do they wear out, or are we additional?
They have a publication that I guess warns about using tasers that are out of warranty and out of support.
Ineffective.
And
Could be ineffective.
the department just feels that we are taking an undue liability to continue to use those and not
without
replace them.
replacing or updating it.
Right.
Okay, thank you.
It looks like this is gonna be like a line item in the budget from now on. every
And
year.
it has been in the last, it's just been, you know what budget that's in, Steve?
It's in, well, no, I believe it was around 15,000.
What, is it in the patrol budget, or are you familiar with that?
I believe it is.
Okay.
So
so
you're
it-
gonna basically have a 9,768 line item every year. Cause after 5 years, you're gonna have to re-up them again, so every 5 years, it'll be
If
a
you
line
continue-
item in it.
If you continue the TASER program, yes.
Yeah.
But it also extends the warranty, where now,
Yeah.
when you buy one, it comes with a 1-year warranty. So we've had to replace them because they were not under warranty.
Yeah.
Now they will be.
Chief, are you satisfied with this process playing out like this? What's your thoughts on it, please?
Yes, sir, and having less lethal option, is so important for us. And Taser's been very, very effective for us in our usage, from officer injury, also suspect injury. It takes the fight out of them. It's just done quickly. It's the most effective, less lethal option that's out there. And with this program, I'm afraid if we don't go into it, we're going to be in the same situation we were in with our car cameras that we no longer have, because they were not supported. And then the cost to replace all of those is rather large. With this program, Greg, correct me if I'm wrong, we will actually decrease our annual Taser budget by a couple of $1,000s. So it was already budgeted for us for the first line item to cover batteries, cartridges, things of that nature. So by entering into this program, we get the latest Taser, which actually has better diagnostic results, where we download all the data from the usage of the Tasers, and it ensures everyone has a new one. All the old Tasers we can actually keep; those are ours to keep, and we can have for spares in the event one of the new ones malfunction, has to be repaired, which is covered under warranty for the the 5 years of that taser.
So you have a pretty heavy usage for this, for a taser and for having them available. Is that correct? Am I assume that's correct?
Yes, sir. And just to have the less lethal, and we all follow the worldly events in our nation, and
Yeah.
I can tell you story after story of where the taser has in fact resolved a violent encounter
Yeah.
without having to use deadly force. One here recently, where an officer encountered an armed subject. Officer had to make a split-second decision. Individual was actually coming. He had a gun, a long gun on a sling. It was actually coming around on the officer with it. The officer chose to use a taser, which is another reason why we need these tasers to work. There's two things we need to work. It's our tasers and of course our sidearms without fail. But it's very important to have this less lethal.
We want you to have the best and the latest technologies, of course, for the protection of your officers.
Yes,
and for the liability that the city may incur as a result of that. And I call for the question, Mayor.
Okay,
I think you had a motion. Do you have a motion?
you can make a motion. Yes, sir.
Yes, sir. So moved.
All right, have a motion to approve this purchase. Or a second?
Second.
Second from Bill Eskew. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, motion carries.
Next item I have, I sent out an email earlier today when Mike Goff brought it to my office for action. And we've got a tractor at the wastewater treatment plant. It's a 1997 Ford tractor, and it's used to pull the wagon that injects the biosolids from the plant there on the acres that are I guess it would be south of Public Works. The tractor's had some problems, but Mike was hoping to wait until the budget process to request another replacement tractor. This tractor just has not made it and had to go to the shop. They did look into it to see what it would take to fix it, and gave an estimate of $25,035.93. So I'm presenting that to the board to recommend that they award it to J&P Machine of Dyersburg for that estimate.
Did they tell you what was wrong?
It's got front end, Mike, did I tell you, it was in the differentials in the front end, the gears and the housing had worn, and that was the bulk of the repair was the hubs that had been worn out.
The bearing housings that contains the bearings for the steering system on the tractor, the bearings failed, and when they failed, they immediately damaged the housings that the bearings set in. And they have to tear the tractor down before they can tell, what the repairs are gonna be. So we're looking at putting used parts back in it. And hopefully this will get us by another year and a half before we have to look at collecting the funds to purchase a new tractor.
Does this raise any question about just an estimate from J&P? Is there anybody else? Or, I mean, y'all done, I know we've done business with them for a number of times, and I guess they're reputable and do a good job, but I didn't know, is it, I mean, you just got one price and that's it.
That's right, and like he said, they had to take it down to see what's wrong with it, and it's not very feasible, I guess, to have them put it back together and take it somewhere else. So we have faith in J&P. They've done good work for us, and we have no reason to doubt their estimate.
Is this the first tractor we bought when we started injecting?
Yes, sir. It's the same piece of equipment.
Yeah.
This is gonna be the largest maintenance repair that's been performed on this.
Been using it for a long time, man. Yeah. Thank you.
Will there be
Y'all had talked about a lease and all that, and you've been through the lease part and all that, that just never,
I guess not in depth enough to, and the funds aren't there to buy the tractor now, so he's gonna repair this tractor. That will get it back up to, should be a resale value at the time that we trade it in. And so the purchase of a new unit will come at a later time.
If and when.
There'll be some warranty on what they do on it for so long.
I'm not sure there with the fact that they're using used parts, but they're like certified used parts. I mean, it's not something that's wore out when they put it on. What this will do is extend the life of this tractor. I'm hoping year and a half, something like that, until we can plan to collect the funds to do better.
And you do have to get some of it spread before the first of the year.
Yeah, what I've got, see, I've got 102 or so acres out there that the state allows me to account for to put biosolids on. So I can put down somewhere around 300 metric tons a year. It's not uncommon for me to inject 290 metric tons. I've got 50 that needs to move right now. And if I carry those over to the next year, and then I have a year with heavy solids, then I'm gonna really be cramped on ground next year. So what I got needs to move need to move as much as I can this year. And it's viable that this piece of equipment, is operating so that I can get this work done.
So your tractor's sitting down there now, tore down, waiting.
Yeah.
Greg, what would the cost of a new tractor to do this particular job roughly cost? Do you have an idea?
This tractor was actually marginal as far as the power,
Yeah.
so we would really need to step up a size, and so we're looking at about 250 or 260.
Oh.
Is that correct?
Well, a new tractor at Tri-County is $360,000.
Wow. Okay.
That's why I wanna make the repairs on this unit,
Yeah.
so
Okay.
that I can kinda extend the time of the service lights on this, so that the city can make plans on getting these funds together, instead of just trying to come back at one time, trying to get that all.
Thank you, Mike.
Mike, would the new parts cost a whole lot more than the parts you're getting?
Well, you're talking about buying new parts, you're talking about a unit that's over 20 years old. Finding a new part for this tractor would probably be virtually impossible. It would have to be sitting in a parts house somewhere in the United States.
Okay.
And as far as factory parts new from New Holland, we can't get those.
Okay.
Any other questions? Further recommendation from Greg, I'd entertain a motion to approve this.
So move.
Motion from Robert Taylor, is there a second?
Second.
Second from Mike Morgan, any discussion? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, motion carries. Thank you all, thank you. Next item on the agenda, report from Alderman Bob Kirk.
I don't have anything, Mayor, thank you.
Bill Eskew.
Just want to say, I hope everybody stays healthy and happy during the holidays, and tell everybody Merry Christmas.
Terry Glover.
Merry Christmas, Happy New Year, and remember what the season's for.
Kevin Chaney.
I don't have anything, Mayor. Thank you.
Mike Morgan.
Something for Merry Christmas.
Dennis Moody.
Merry Christmas, and I guess the next time we'll be is next year one.
Yes, sir.
This will be it for this year.
We hope so.
All right.
Robert Taylor Jr.
Anything, Mayor?
Thank you. I passed out the engineer's report for the month of November. If you have any questions, contact myself or Scott Ball or Tiffany. Also, Mike Morgan alluded to it earlier in his prayer about the Garner family. Johnny Garner passed away Friday, was an employee of the city of Dyersburg Police Department for 27 years. And just keep him and his family, or his family in your prayers and at this time and difficult time this season of the year. Also mentioned Miss Ann Kirk passed away, the wife of Jerry Kirk, sister-in-law to Bob Kirk. And Bob, you're in our thoughts and prayers, as well as Jerry as well. Also asked for prayers for Jenny Spence. Jenny Spence, a longtime employee of the city of Dyersburg Police Department that retired several years ago. Her health is failing. She's not doing well, so just remember her and her family at this time as well. With that, hope everybody has a Merry Christmas and a Happy New Year, and we're adjourned. Thank you.